Coping strategies for healing from depression and anxiety. As you can see, I'm wearing my new green turtleneck. I don't know how it seems here. It looks like more of a teal in the iPad, but believe me, it's green. So anyway, I thought I'd start out today by talking to you about a really cool book called The Recovery Letters that I was sent to me by, actually, I was asked to comment on it by the man James Withy, who put this together, edited it. It comes out of the United Kingdom. And essentially what this book is about is these are letters addressed to people who are experiencing depression from people who've already been depressed. So you're on the other side of the depression, you're writing to someone who has been depressed and has, gone through it and is coming out the other side. So let me see right here. I will go ahead and read one of the cool letters here. It says, "Dear you, that sinking, sick feeling, the loss of control, watching everything slip away, feeling paralyzed, feeling as if you're just existing and there's no way to live. This is how I felt on and off for years. Depression for me gradually got worse and worse like a parasite. But once it got way past feeling worse, the feeling anything I'd experienced slowly, gradually, as it got worse, it gradually got better. I took baby steps. At first, getting out of bed was an accomplishment. The next day, getting dressed was. The day after, I was unable to move again. But the day after that, I was able to get up and get dressed. After tons of meds, hospitalization, psychosis, believing that no one was in my exact situation so they couldn't know I could get better, I got better. I still struggle some days, of course, but the darkness is lifted. I'm able to live again. And what was my biggest health healer personally? Time made me so ill, but time also got me through. Meds helped, CBT helped, a friend helped, music helped, but time healed. In darkness, the sun will always rise again. From Izzy." I'll be right back. Call April Wagner.
Call April Wagner.
Hi, April. I'm glad you could see me. I wasn't quite sure whether this was even going live. I was trying to get it working on my computer and nothing was happening. Very frustrated. I couldn't get the camera to work. Anyway, here I am. I'm glad I actually am live. And I was reading from a book called The Recovery Letters, written by people who have been depressed, who are basically, I don't know why, April, I don't know why the computer didn't work. But no, well, I'm on the iPad now, so the computer is what I wanted to do, but somehow the camera stopped working. So I got to call Apple and figure that out. Anyway, this book called The Recovery Letters is really, really potent. It basically is written by people who are have gone through the depression or on the side and writing letters to people who have been through it. And that's why support groups are so really powerful, because when you have Lisa Cook says, "Hi, Douglas. Nice to see you, Lisa. Glad you tuned in." Anyway, when you have in a couple of minutes, when more people join, I'll tell my joke, which April has already heard. But anyway, when more people come in, I'll share that joke. But in the meantime, when you have a support group and you have different people at various levels of mental health recovery, the beautiful thing is that the people who are on the other side of the depression can assure the person who's still in the dark night of the soul that things will get better. And that assurance means a lot more coming from somebody who's already been through it and is on the other side than some psychologist, some clinician, somebody who's, coming at it from a more intellectual point of view. Now, of course, I'm a great advocate of going to therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists, and they're wonderful as resources. But when it comes to somebody assuring you that you're going to get through, there is nothing better than hearing from someone who's lived in that darkness and has come out the other side. they can actually say, yeah, I know what it's like. I've been there, and things are going to get better. Just reposition myself here. All right, so trying to get that glare off my face from the window. Maybe I'll just try closing this. Brilliant. Fix the problem immediately. That's much better. Yeah, so any of you who are struggling with depression, finding someone who's already been through it and who is, hi, Daniel Perkins says, hi, Doug. Hi, Daniel. Nice of you to check in. I was just saying that when you are going through a dark night of the soul, the best resources you can have is to connect with someone who's already been there and come out the other side and can reassure you, not from speculation, not from theory, not from something you read, because they've actually done it and come out the other side. So that's why I encourage people to be in support groups, to be around other people who are in the same space they were in, are in, or were in when they were depressed. And it's really, really helpful to hear from someone who's been there that there is hope, that there's healing, and there's recovery. So with that being said, I'm going to grab this book again that I showed you at the beginning. I think it's over here. Where did I put it? Oh, here it is. It's called The Recovery Letters. I'm going to read you another letter. This is from somebody who basically, again, it's from Claire. This is what Claire writes to any of you who are suffering from depression. She says, "Dear you, right now you probably don't think you'll ever feel better. The idea that anything could help actually seems ridiculous, a pointless hope. Friends don't understand why you generally can't see how you ever be happy again. It's as if you're in a different world or on a different island." So, of course, when you are in the dark night of the soul, when your brain is dysregulated, you can't possibly imagine that things will get better. And so people can reassure you, but it's really hard to believe them because you're convinced things are hopeless. So Claire continues, "It's as if we're in different worlds or on different islands. I'm writing from a happier island now. There's clear blue skies and sparkling sea. Of course, it's dark, cold, and miserable sometimes, but I can remember what the sun feels like here. I can imagine feeling happy, even when times are hard. But if you're anything like me, your depressed island is not somewhere where the sun used to shine. It's always been swirling with a dark fog that reflects and magnifies negative thoughts until they suffocate you into submission." So this woman is saying, I'm on the other side. I'm on the happy island. You're in the dark island, but I know what it feels. I've been there. Again, that type of encouragement really means something that someone's depressed. She says here, "It's hard to trust in something you can't feel. Trusting that there are things out there that will help, that you'll feel better in ways you can't imagine now, is enormously hard. That's why you need messages from the sunnier island, postcards to tell you that somehow you'll find yourself back there again. Let us remind you of what helps." So this is what this letter is, something reminding you what helps. Any questions? Please feel free to ask them. I'm here to respond. And, I've been studying this for 50 years, both personally and professionally. So I know a lot about depression from my personal experience and my professional experience. So let me pay this joke. Many of us try to eat healthy, but every time I try to eat healthy, a candy bar looks at me and snickers. Snickers the candy bar, right? Here it is. Of course, when you look at the ingredients here, I'm on Weight Watchers. I've lost 10 pounds in the last 10 weeks. Let me see. Oh, that's a bit. My God, what does this say? 210 calories, 12 grams of fat, 6 grams of saturated fat, 26 grams of sugar. Oh my God, that's 6.5 teaspoons. Well, I guess I'll have to give this one to my clients. So, Dan says, "Right now I'm listening to The Body Keeps the Score. What a great book. Thanks for recommending it." Yes. Are you listening to an audiobook, Daniel? Well, The Body Keeps the Score is a great book. It's about trauma. And one of the things that people don't recognize, they did a video about how trauma can affect the nervous system. It's on audiobooks. Well, great. That's a good way to listen to it. Is that it's, people say, well, people are depressed because they have bad brain chemistry or they're not producing enough serotonin. What they don't realize is that this isn't always inherited. This is not always hereditary. It comes from the fact that people who have early trauma in their childhood through abuse and neglect, verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, abandonment, one of the parents leaves, a divorce, these things can also adversely affect the nervous system and predispose you to depression and anxiety. And so what this book, The Body Keeps the Score, is about how that happens and how you can basically work through that on the other side. Okay, let me see what's going on here. I think I'm going to continue reading this letter. So this one writes, so even if you don't believe you'll ever feel warmth on your skin again, try and be gentle with yourself. Depression often reverses our motivation. You have to start doing something in order to get a glimpse of how it can help. It's not easy. Rationally, you might want to know that getting out of the house will help you emotionally. You've got nothing. But once you get going, you'll slowly start to remember what a better mood feels like. Exercise helps. Sleep well and drink less alcohol. Write things down and talk to the people around you. Seek help where you need it. And hardest of all, trust that depression isn't all there ever was or all there ever will be. Better times exist, even if they feel lost in the city fog right now. So, encouragement. That's what people need. Well, somehow we're not quite getting the questions I was hoping to get. What I might do is I might go and try to fix the camera on my computer and boot up in about 15 more minutes when I'm using the platform I really want to use. And maybe there's more people tuning in. So I think I'm going to take a break. I'm going through a depressive episode, may have undersold medication, but to get out of it, I'm going to take medication. Feels like a catch-22. Well, that is a catch-22, and that medication, may have caused it, but then you're looking for medication to help. Well, sometimes medication has adverse side effects and can plummet you into the depression, and other times it can be healing. So it is a catch-22. But what I advise in my video coming up on this coming Monday about a condition called akathisia, which is a side effect of antidepressants, or some, where you're really restless and it puts you in an agitated state, is that you should start really small. If you're going to take a new antidepressant, Lisa, cut whatever pill you have in quarters and take 1/4 of the minimum dose and build up slowly. That way you won't have the risk of having such an adverse reaction again. So I hope that helps. All right. Well, Lisa and who else was watching? April and Daniel, I wish you well. Thanks, Lisa. Why don't you check in about a half an hour? I'm going to boot this back up on my mainframe computer. And, well, now Gmail finally sends a notice out. Well, it took you 14 minutes, didn't it? Maybe I'll wait for some more people to tune in. What else can I talk about? Yes, just got mine, LOL. Good day, Dr. Douglas. Okay, so thank you, Masara. Well, maybe this is, I don't know why Gmail gave a 15-minute late alert to the fact I was on live, but we'll hang around a little bit more and see if more people show up. That'd be great. Leanne says, hi, Doug. Okay, so nice to see you always and hear from you always, Leanne. Let me know if you have any questions. So, interesting point this Lisa was making about the catch-22 of antidepressants, because they can either harm or heal depending on who you are and the reaction you get. So don't quite understand that question. So anyway, yeah, antidepressants can be a double-edged sword, really, because for some people they're a miracle, for some people they're a monster. Hey, but what was the name of the drug interaction and gene test? It was called GeneSight, GeneSight. You go look that up on the internet. You can you can take your saliva and send it to them, and they will analyze your DNA and tell you which drugs are more likely to help you and which drugs or medications are more likely to have an adverse interaction. Very interested. Did you ever feel your skin burn because of anxiety? No. Lisa Cook, I took the GeneSight test. How did you basically come out? What was it helpful? For me, it was mostly helpful. It talked about a number of drugs that were adversely affecting me, but they included Wellbutrin in that, and Wellbutrin does not affect me adversely. Yeah, April says, awesome, Lisa. Was it accurate? That's what I want to hear. Leanne says, why are there so many people depressed? It's a large percentage. Well, I think one reason is the breakdown of communities in America and other developed countries. Before, people lived in extended families. They all went to the same church, the same neighborhood store. Things were very homogeneous. Now we're very mobile. People rarely live in the same town as their parents. Yeah, I'm not who sure Dan TDM is. So what can I tell you? But yeah, no, people. To answer your question, Leanne, people move away from their parents. Um, well, Lisa says I found out that SSRIs don't work for me. Now I don't have to waste time on that. NSTAR says they used 23andMe. Take the data file they give you, and several online tools will tell you what your genetic mutations are and how they affect which drugs. Okay, it looks like 23andMe is also a good thing to use to test your genetics. And go ahead and see if a knowledge ahead of time will work of what medications you could possibly use or um, won't use. My Sarah says, what are the general tips to support someone, friend, relative suffering severe depression? How can they keep on and make them feel that they're not alone? Tell them they're not alone, and encourage them always to get treatment. Encourage them always to get treatment and seek help. So many people who are going through mental health disorder, we talked about that April last night in our group, feel a sense of shame. They don't want to admit there's something wrong with them. They think they're weak or defective, and that prevents them from doing the one thing that will help them get better, and that is reaching out for support. So definitely you need to tell your friend who's going through the depression to overcome that and to reach out, seek help, whether it's from a therapist or a psychiatrist or a rabbi or priest or minister or even a school counselor, whomever, but don't keep it a secret. They say in A, we're only as sick as our secrets. Do you believe doctors truly understand how medication works and how the brain works, Leah? No, absolutely not. We're too early in the game. Psychiatry is a very primitive art. I've been doing 2,8-THICC lately, says Carol. Is that healthy? I have no idea what that means. You can tell me. I moved, Robert Lee says, I moved from the coast to the city to be close to my children, and the move has made me depressed as I miss my old home and now just feel homeless. Yeah, well, loss of connection is really, really tough. So moving away from your support system, yeah, it's going to take you time to get used to that. Maybe you can contact your old friends by Skype and maybe join some meetup groups to try to meet new people. But yeah, separation is a big deal. Caddy says, my best friend really didn't help me through my depression. She would never check in on me. I finally come out of it and I'm happy now. Should I forgive her? Should I get in touch with her again? Absolutely. When I was depressed and suicidal, some of my friends, especially my men friends, were so distressed by what I was going through. They thought they would catch it. They thought my depression was contagious. And so they kind of backed off, but it was only because of fear. So I would say, your friend wasn't there for you. She was doing the best she can. You're better now. Of course you want to reach out. Good friends are hard to find and hard to create. So, Alexander Pub says, to err is human, to forgive is divine. So I would say that you reach out to your friend, and you might even ask her, hey, I don't want to be accusatory, and I'm not upset with you, but I'm just curious why it was difficult for you to support me when I was depressed. Make that as a non-threatening inquiry, compassionate one, and understand maybe she could help you because she didn't know what to do. So give your friend the benefit of the doubt and go ahead and try to reconnect with her. Okay. Cool 10 guys is a form of SUCC. It burns 2,000 calories a day. Would that be okay for a 347-pound male? I'm still not quite sure what SUCC means. Burning 2,000 calories a day. Yeah, well, if it's a form of exercise, you got to check with your doctor if you're overweight or heavy. Daniel Perkins says, which is more helpful to you in healing depression, the spiritual side like medication or practical measures? Oh, well, meditation, the spiritual side like meditation, or the practical measures. Well, um, it's really not a matter of either or, it's a matter of both and. I mean, if you leave a comment on this video, I will send you a free copy of my 5 areas of therapeutic self-care holistic plan of recovery: physical self-care, mental emotional self-care, spiritual connection, social support, and lifestyle habits. So it's not spirituality versus medication. It's not exercise versus diet. It's not praying, versus going to see a CBT therapist. It's all of the above. So you don't have to choose. As a matter of fact, the more things you do, the more synergistic the effect is going to be. The sun's coming out after a day of rain. I think I'll lower my shades some more. Great. Okay, so we have another comment here. Lisa says, during my depressive episode, I'm seeing that I have 1 day of reprieve, but the next day depression will be back. Is this normal? Oh my God, is this normal? You should get my book, Healing from Depression, or order my ebook, When Going Through Hell Don't Stop, by going to my website, healingfromdepression.com. I had this exact same thing happen. I'd have 2 days of depression, 1 day of calm, 3 days of anxiety, 1 day of peace, back and forth, because my brain wasn't stable enough to hold a good mood. This will go on until you do start to feel better more consistently than that, and then things will even out. So it is completely normal and to be expected that you will basically have a day of peace and then a day of hell, and then a day of peace and then a day of hell, back and forth. I mentioned in my memoir that anxiety and depression, bat you back and forth over the net like a drunken ping pong player. And that's also true of feeling, reprieves and then going back into hell. Well, it's upsetting also to have to go through that, but okay. Actually, Leanne says, Menelaus has been around for decades. If doctors don't understand completely why take medication that could possibly make you worse or not work at all, it's kind of upsets me. Well, they've done a lot of controlled studies, Leanne, and we know something about medication. We know it's very imprecise and it doesn't always work, and sometimes it hurts, but it also does work, and it works for a number of people, maybe a minority, but a high minority. I've seen cases of 40 to 55%. Well, that's only 50% chance of feeling better on medication, but it's better than nothing. So the way to get around the possible harm of antidepressants, which I'm going to talk about in my next video on October 18th, 2017, is to titrate. Look that up on YouTube. Or on not YouTube, on Google. Titrate means take the starting dose and take your pill cutter and cut it in force and start really, really low, subclinically low. And any adverse side effects will be less likely to happen because your body will tolerate it at the lower dose and get used to it before you increase the dose to higher and higher. So yes, it's imprecise. Yes, things can go wrong, but in my clinical practice of 17 years, I've seen the costs not as high as the benefits outweighing the cost for a number of my clients. So Katie, really good advice. Thank you. I did tell her just to go on walks in the neighborhood with me to help me get out of the house, but she never did. I'm finding it hard to forgive. Well, maybe you can forgive right now. Feel your anger, feel your upset, and then and then check back with yourself in a month or two when you have more distance from it, and maybe you'll be able to forgive your friend. Tyrell says, let me ask you a serious question. Sure. Lisa says, what are your thoughts on the new medications that haven't been tested versus older ones? Example, Latuda and Lamictal versus Lamictal. Well, Latuda's been around for at least 2 or 3 years, so there's been a lot of testing that's happening. Tyrell says, okay, so Robert Lee, do emotional problems also lead to physical problems? What are the most common physical symptoms? Upset stomach, gastrointestinal problems, often caused by stress and anxiety. Sometimes when people get anxiety attacks, they have heart palpitations, headaches, all sorts of aches and pains that are not otherwise, caused by physical things. So, it can basically be, many, many things that are being caused by depression, many physical things. I'm finding it hard to be a teacher and having depression. Do you have any ideas on how to deal with the stress of teaching and dealing with depression? Well, I have a woman who I've been coaching in the Midwest many months ago, who was working in a school, and the depression was definitely interfering with her ability to work. That's what one of the symptoms of depression is. It's interfering with your social, occupational, other important areas of functioning. So, it's tough. Maybe you can take some personal time off or a short medical leave of absence until you get better. So you got to kind of get in there every day and do your best. Let your supervisor know you're struggling with depression. So if your performance is not as good as it could be, at least they'll understand and that you're not a slacker. But you can also take time off. And a lot of people come to see me have leaves of absences from work while they're working on getting better. And then when they feel better, they go back to work. N-Star says we can have meds that help, and we don't understand why. Both can be true at the same time. Well, that's true. No one knows how aspirin works. It's been around forever, right? No one really understands how it works. There's something called ECT, which is electroconvulsive therapy, which is very controversial in some parts, but in the psychiatric community and in my experience, it's pretty darn effective. I had it done many months ago, and it really helped me get over my depression. Does anyone know how ECT works? It's all speculation. I mean, why would inducing a grand mal seizure in the brain snap someone out of a catatonic depression? But somehow it does seem to rearrange the chemical soup, but no one knows the mechanism why. So you're right. Sophia, thanks for doing this live, good sir. Well, you're welcome, Sophia. There are many things we do in medicine that are, that basically are very, very helpful and that work, that are efficacious, but we don't really know why, but we can still use them. So I mean, look, primitive man, you cooked on fires. They didn't understand anything about the chemistry of fires. They still use it. Have you ever heard of Dr. Claire Weeks, her book I just saw on the blog about anxiety, depression, hope, and healing for your nerves? No, I haven't. But anything that promises hope and healing for your nerves and anxiety, depression should be looked into. There's lots of ways to basically, heal from depression and anxiety. I have in my book about 45 different tools and techniques and strategies you can use, and a lot of them are obvious. By the way, I just read an article in the New York Times. Thank you very much, Doug. That's such an inspiration, everybody. Thank you, April. Yeah, exercise. I have about 5 videos on exercise, and every 2 weeks, why is mental illness still stigmatized in your opinion? Well, Leanne, it's stigmatized because people don't understand it, and because the media often portrays mentally ill people, especially people who are schizophrenic, doing violent things. And so people get this perception that mentally ill people are violent, which is not the case. They're no more violent than anybody else. And if they are violent, they usually turn on themselves through suicide and self-harm. So misrepresentation in the media, the mysteriousness of it, it's invisible. You can't see it. If someone's in a wheelchair and they're wheeled in front of you, oh, this person, sprained his foot or broke his leg. It's obviously what's going on. If someone's pacing back and forth, hearing voices, that's scary because you don't know what's causing it. So, yeah, mental illness is still stigmatized, but not as much as it used to be. I have my wife has a nephew who's really been struggling. He hasn't been able to make it to work more than half the time, but he went to his boss, said he was suffering from depression. The boss said, I understand. My sister has the same condition. So people are more accepting of it in the workplace, other places. So I think the stigma is being released, but it's still there. Um, yeah, Claire Weeks' book. Well, let me know what it says. You know, I'd like to know more about it. But exercise, I was telling you about exercise, right? New York Times article. There's something called neurogenesis, which means the brain can grow new neurons. Now, when I was growing up and studying, pre-med, um, they said that we're only born with a certain amount of brain nerve cells, and when they die off, that's it, no more. But now, from neurons genesis, meaning from beginning, like the book of Genesis, you can have the birth of new nerves, and the best way to do that is through exercising. And now in the New York Times article, they said not only does it create new nerves, but it helps the nerves that are already there and guards against dementia and Alzheimer's. So for the first time, we have proof that if you exercise on a regular basis, at least 20 minutes a day, 3 or 4 times a week, your odds of getting dementia or Alzheimer's will go down. Will they be zero? Of course not, because we don't still know what causes these things. But exercise has a protective mechanism effect not only in the heart but the brain. We all know that exercise is good for the heart, aerobic activity. This is why many teachers don't tell their superiors that they're suffering, because we know what occurs over when we do well. This woman who works in the school systems that I work with did tell her superiors, and they were compassionate, so it wasn't the end of her career. But it all depends on where you are and how open the culture is, and how accepting, how educated people are about mental illness and depression. But yeah, I agree, Leanne. It's not fair that people are stigmatized. They shouldn't be. So I don't automatically think your career will be over if you're a teacher and you tell a superior. But if you're afraid of that, well, I would try to work through that fear and be open anyway. But if you're clear that there's a stigma in where you work, then maybe it's best to keep it to yourself. So yes, there are many benefits of exercising. I read Claire Weeks' book. It's good, considered one of the first for anxiety and self-help written in the 60s. Wow. A seminal book, Claire Weeks. Hi, Ian. Nice to see you again. I started on Paxil 12.5. I thought it was going to die. Went up to 25. And dosing again, side effect anxiety from hell went to 30.5. And magic started 80% better. Wow. That is interesting. So you actually, Ian, you actually withstood the anxiety or agitation that comes with the beginning effects of the SSRIs, and you went through it and you actually pushed through it, and you came out better. Sometimes when you are having initial anxiety on these SSRIs, a prescriber will often give you some sort of a minor tranquilizer, benzodiazepine like Xanax or like Klonopin or like Ativan, to take the edge off while you're getting used to the drug while it's ramping up. My sister-in-law did that when she took Zoloft. It was very helpful. So if you're starting on a SSRI antidepressant and you feel a little bit agitated, go ask your doctor to give you a small dose of Ativan or Valium for a short period of time, and it will relax you while you're developing a tolerance to the side effects and waiting for the therapeutic effects of the drug to kick in, which is what happened evidently to, I think it was Ian. Yeah, so, okay, so what is, Dennis says, having no intuition and interact with other normal people in daily life, maybe when going for a walk or in the store. Any suggestions? Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you mean by no intuition, but you can go to a store and just say thank you to the cash register. Ian says, 6 weeks of hell was worth it. Well, I'm sorry you had to go through the hell of tolerating the side effects of Paxil, but I'm glad you're feeling better now. Uh, Ash J says, I've been depressed and anxious for 20 years, since 20 years. Can't pinpoint the thought, too hazy. Well, maybe, are you saying you don't know the cause? Well, even if you don't, you can still get treatment. So I'm not quite sure what that. I also took my work, took 2.5 weeks, months for depression. They were supportive to a point. People are afraid of what they don't understand. That's what April says. So when she was depressed, that worked. She took 2.5 months off. They tolerated it, but again, they still, because they don't understand depression, they were still kind of did it begrudgingly. But again, sometimes you'll have a supervisor who's extremely supportive and won't hold it against you if you need time off until you get back on your feet again and can return to the workplace. Let me see what's going on with my shades. Well, so let me see if we have any other comments here. Pink Floyd. Oh, Pink Floyd Bra, one of my favorite commenters on YouTube. Thank you. Nice of you to be there. I'm working out, taking medication, CBD. This time I'll defeat depression and anxiety. Well, I'm glad you have that type of an intention, because clearly setting the intention to heal and having a clear intention and desire to get well is 50% of the game. If you really want to get out of depression and anxiety and you set your mind to it and do all that you can, it's going to really increase your chances, especially if you create a mental picture and image. Go check out my video called Setting the Intention to Heal. We talk all about that. Well, Ian Hudson says, I've been off now 7 weeks and ready to go back to work. Finally, really is worth the fight. Well, I'm really glad you hung in there and you came through. And I have a video that just came out called Will These Bouts of Depression Ever End? And it's really important that you watch that video, because it says that depression can be managed but not cured. So even if you're feeling better now and you're going back to work, remember, you have to keep up the self-care. You have to keep up the exercise, the CBT, the diet, the good sleeping, because when a stressor comes along, the chain will always break at its weakest link. And for us, the weakest link is the depression and anxiety. So it is really important that even if you come out of an episode, I said in the book, Going Through Hell, Don't Stop, there's two basic, tasks of healing from depression and anxiety. The first is getting out of hell, and the second is staying out. So staying out of hell takes as much work as getting out, and you have to be vigilant lest a relapse happens, and relapse is often a part of recovery. So congratulations, Ian. I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm glad you're going to work. Just remember to keep up the good habits that got you here. David says, I'm thinking about going on an SSRI for social anxiety. Well, for some people it works. Paxil is supposedly actually said to help with social anxiety. But oftentimes exposure works. We have a gal who came to our group who had a lot of social anxiety, thought she was never going to be able to sit around 6 or 7 people. She got in, and I guess it was a safe space. After 10, 20 minutes, she said, my anxiety's gone. I feel just normal around here, and I can talk to people and not feel scared. So sometimes you can overcome social anxiety by putting yourself in situations with other people in a safe way where you can overcome and work through that anxiety. I'm hearing some stuff about benzos. Leanne says, I'm stuck in benzos now forever because these doctors never warned me how addictive they were. I tried before, went through absolute hell. Well, I'm sorry that's the case. I'd like to know what benzodiazepine you're taking, Leanne, and how much you're taking. I took Klonopin 5.5 milligrams as needed during my 9-month depressive episode many years ago, and I maybe took 0.5 of Klonopin 4 or 5 out of 7 days, but it wasn't enough to get me addicted. When I got over the depression, I stopped the benzo and I was fine. So maybe some people have greater sensitivity, and even a small dose like that can get them dependent. Fortunately, I didn't have that. 1 milligram 3 times a day. Yeah, Leanne, that's a lot of Klonopin. As I said, I took a 0.5 milligram a day. You're taking 6 times as much as I am. So you can't, over time, go from 3 milligrams to 2.5 to 2 and gradually go really, really, really slowly off. And use other things like herbs and other natural relaxants to compensate for your going down on the medication, on the Klonopin. David says, I always do well for a time, then a stressor in life takes me over every time. Yeah, well, that's exactly what this video that I just published is. Will these bouts of depression never end? The stressor comes, and then there you are back in the dark house, as Teddy Roosevelt said. So what's the key? Look to our brothers and sisters in Alcoholics Anonymous. Practice the recovery strategies that you learn from this channel, that you learn in books you've read, and just keep it up, because in some ways your life depends on it. And but you know how the stressor overcame you and brought you back down to the abyss? Well, guess what? You got out before, you're going to get out again. So just remember that, David. We have a comment somehow I didn't get to. N-Star says, thanks a lot for doing these videos. It's great you do them on a set schedule so we can plan on being here. Yeah, I'm sorry. If you want to look at this video, skip the first 15 minutes. There wasn't much happening because YouTube didn't announce I was on doing the video till 11:15. That might have been because of the problem I had with my computer. Leanne says, I've tried the psychological addiction it's hard to do. Doctors never warned me 10 years ago how addicted they are. Well, if you have to stand the benzos, maybe you can make the best of it. What do you think of bipolar 2 depression, anxiety medication? Zoloft works. Only Zoloft? I'm not quite sure what that question is, but many things work for bipolar 2 depression. If you're taking antidepressant, also take a mood stabilizer, because for some people, antidepressants can launch someone with bipolar into mania. There's a lot of controversy. Some psychiatrists said if you're bipolar, you should never take an antidepressant. Leanne, no, don't believe that benzos cause memory loss. I have a cousin who's 79 years old, who's been on tranquilizer since he's been 16. That's 63 years old. His mind is still really sharp. No, I don't think they cause memory loss. The whole idea of bipolar, there are many medications that can help. Lamictal is a really good mood stabilizer. I recommend that highly, very well tolerated. So if you're going to use one, that's a good one to use. There's also lithium, of course, which is the standard, which was the only thing for bipolar disorder for about 40 years. But it does make people really foggy sometimes and dulls them. David says, I'm an alcoholic, sober 5 years in recovery, will do well. There for a time, even sponsor people, then they get overwhelmed and completely shut down. It happens a lot. Well, so David, what you need to do is that you need to take some classes in stress reduction. You should look this up on the internet. John Kabat-Zinn, Kabatzinn, mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR. Try to find someone in your area who teaches. It's a 12-week class on how to use mindfulness meditation to reduce stress and not get overwhelmed. Because that's what I hear you saying. As stressor comes along, you get overwhelmed, you start to drink, you feel depressed again. Patty says, I'm on Lyrica, helps with back pain as well. Interesting. To lessen the chance of relapse, learn some stress reduction techniques. And there's lots of books on stress reduction. If you cope with stress better, you're less likely to have a relapse. SSR is making me so damn drowsy. Well, says David, well, for some people, they make them agitated. Danny says, are you going for bike ride today since it's sunny? Well, we're having showers today. So we're on a sun break. In about 35, 40 minutes, it's supposed to be pouring rain. So depends on whether it stays clear. Thank you for asking. Of course, we're coming to the rainy season in Oregon, so the bicycling is going to calm down a little bit. Ian says, push through, David. Good advice. Always good to try to push through, although not always easy. So David, about the SSRIs making you drowsy, maybe you can go down on them. Some people I have found in my groups have really recently started taking Adderall and Ritalin, stimulants for ADHD people, in addition to these drugs for focus and for clarity. You would never want to do that on your own, but there are some psychiatrists who are now prescribing the stimulants to overcome the drowsiness that some of these drugs cause. We have one gal who's on large doses of something called Seroquel, which is an antipsychotic. Having large amounts of it is like a horse tranquilizer. It puts a wet blanket over your head, you're gone. Well, she had insomnia, so the Seroquel is helping her sleep, but she's so drowsy in the morning because the Seroquel is so powerful. So she takes something called Adderall, and it's like a cup of coffee or like 4 cups of coffee. It snaps her out of the fog and gets her focused. So, this whole thing using cocktails of medication is very interesting. One to kind of help you calm down, one to help you, get sped up. NSTAR says, ask your doctor about splitting your dose between morning and evening. Hey, that's cool. Hey, Anno, nice to hear from you again from the UK. Patty says, my memory is still very bad. Was it very bad from taking the medication? I'm not really quite sure what you mean by that. But yeah, again, medications are so idiosyncratic. It's so difficult to predict how a medication is going to affect you because of the way people respond differently. So, it is a kind of a crapshoot. But Leanne says Seroquel is horrible. I didn't even need to be on them. Caused by the misdiagnosed with a bipolar 2. Well, Amarjers Hussein says, hello, Mentor. Nice to see you live. Nice to see you. Well, yeah. Sorry about your bad effects of Seroquel, Leanne. It looks like you had a lot of bad effects for a lot of drugs. But for some people, Seroquel is like the magic cure. It helps with their anxiety, helps with their sleep. So what can I tell you? But I'm glad you're off it since you had a bad reaction to it. Yeah, NSTAR says asking your doctor about splitting your dose between mornings and evenings. Maybe you won't be so drowsy. Leanne says, I think drinks are getting in trouble now for giving these pills away like candy. And there's excuse to why they eventually went off them. Yeah, so, the thing that's really been given away like candy, don't worry about the psychiatric medications. Worry about the opiates, the opioids like Oxycontin, oxycodone, Vicodin. There's a series right now on PBS NewsHour called America Addicted. 64,000 people died of overdoses in America in 2016. I mean, I thought the suicide rate was high, which is, 42,000, which is really unacceptable. Every 12 minutes, someone dies by suicide. But in terms of overdoses of addiction, it's even worse. Yeah, Anna says, I'm 53 on my second episode after 20 years remission. Well, and I had 19 years between the ages of 47 and 66, so I can relate. Lisa says, thanks for taking off for lunch. Nice to see you. Thank you for your work. My pleasure. You'll see me next week at 11 a.m. Hopefully I'll have my computer working so the screen will not look so horizontal. It'll be more, it won't look so vertical. It'll have a completely different look to it. Alan McNair says, hi, Douglas from Belfast, Northern Ireland. I just wanted to say thanks for your videos and hard work. It's greatly appreciated. I look forward to learning more about depression and how to combat it. Well, just go to healingfromdepression.com or my YouTube channel. Just go into YouTube and type in Douglas Block Depression. You'll get to it. 200 videos I put together over 6 years on depression and anxiety. I mean, that's a lot of information, but my God, we need all the information we can to combat this. Dorothy Hughes. Hello, Dorothy, again. You were here in my last chat. She said, it's great to see you doing live chat again. Always helps to see others' questions as it's easy to relate. As always, great, solid, practical advice. Kind regards, Dorothy, in very rainy Scotland. Well, we're in very rainy Portland. I love Scotland. I stayed at Findhorn. Do you know where Findhorn is, Dorothy? In Forest, Scotland? Lee says, McQueen. Hi, Doug. Hope it's all well, my friend. Yeah, things are going pretty well. I'm having a good time these days. Really enjoying my support groups, my long distance coaching. By the way, I do have a long distance coaching service I offer for people who aren't in Portland, Oregon, and want to work with me. I just spoke to somebody in New Zealand last night, somebody else in Denmark, somebody else in Mexico. So go to healingfromdepression.com and click on the mental health coaching tab in the middle of the page, and you can learn about my program. It follows my book, Healing from Depression, 12 Weeks with Better Mood. We cover one chapter a week. It's very inexpensive compared to therapy, $50 a week. And you just go through the chapters of the book and really learn the tools you need to not only recover from depression, but stay free from it. April says 90 milligrams of Cymbalta works for me. I'm currently on 90 milligrams a day. Well, it does help for some people, and so I'm glad it did. Lisa Cook says, which one of your books do you recommend I read before I have to leave? I want to write them down. Well, two books, Lisa, Healing from Depression and Words That Heal the Blues. So I would recommend those books. Do Healing from Depression first, and Words That Heal the Blues is my 12-week recovery program. Put into a 30-day program where you read an affirmation each day and have a task to do. It's very, very helpful. Ali says, cool, I just started my degree and feeling good today. It's week 6, making new friends, anxiety easing. Future looks bright. Well, that's what usually happens. If you stick around long enough, things do get bright, things do help get better. It often takes a long time. It can take 9, 12, 18 months, sometimes 2 years. That's a long time to be in hell, but the way you get through it is you live one day at a time. Leanne says, in my opinion, therapists diagnose me better than the shrink. They don't spend enough time with you. Yeah, I agree. 15 minutes is not enough time. Leanne says they diagnosed me with borderline personality disorder. It took 40 years to find out I had this. Yeah, sorry. Don't like docs. Laugh out loud. Well, a lot of people don't like doctors, but if you find that therapists are more helpful than doctors, go with a therapist. You know, they do spend more time with you and they are able to connect with you and interact. I disagree with this idea that when I was ill, I would go to see a psychiatrist. They would basically listen to me for 10 minutes, take notes on their pad, and then there was a dartboard over there on the wall, and they would throw a dart at it. And the dartboard was had 8 different slices. One said Prozac, one said Zoloft, one said Paxil, one said Effexor, one said Celexa, one said Lexapro, one said Cymbalta, one said Remeron, and wherever the dart landed, that's what they gave me. That's not really practicing medicine. You know, psychiatrist means doctor of the soul. You can't really connect with a person's soul in 10 or 15 minutes. And so I think, yeah, psychiatrists used to be therapists. They used to spend an hour with you, an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. Those days are gone in the world of managed care. April says she was on Paxil for 8 years before I had it, but not having libido. Cymbalta makes me feel much better, and I have a very healthy libido. Well, nice to know that Cymbalta is working for you. I think we've answered all of the questions. I'm glad. I like your quote, Lee. I just started my degree and feeling good today. One of my clients said I had a PhD in suffering. That's funny, right? PhD in suffering. By the way, I have to repeat my joke that a lot more people will hear. It's about my attempt to help my body and my mind through eating a healthy diet. And I always attempt to eat more healthy, but every now and then a candy bar looks at me and snickers. That's the joke, right? Snickers? 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 All right, enough is enough. I'm really glad that people have commented in this video chat about pushing through and coming out the other side. I thought a shrink referred to all types of therapists. Appreciate your work in depression and anxiety. By the way, best wishes from the UK. No, a shrink is a slang name for a psychiatrist. Leanne says, I'm studying social care practice, so my suffering will help others. Excellent. That's a very good thing to basically do, is to use your suffering to help others. That's called being a wounded healer. That's what I am. Hey, after 50 years of being, down and out, often you might as well turn a negative into positive. Lee, you took the words out of my mouth. Turning the negative into positive, turning lemons into lemonades. Absolutely. So I'm glad you're using your suffering for the benefit of others. It's called redemptive suffering, by the way. Martin Luther King called it that. Wounded healer, I like it. Sure, go look up the word wounded healer, Lee. It's an archetype. It's something that is in primitive societies, shaman, witch doctors, when they were born, if they had some sort of a wound or a mark or some sort of a defect, they were the ones who were chosen to be the medicine men of the tribe. Ann O says, was doing well, but 2 bereavements this year has knocked me. Any advice to keep me going? Well, you definitely need to go to a grief group, see a grief counselor. I say in my video from a couple of weeks ago, the number one cause of depression is loss of attachment, and that can be loss of a person, a spouse, a boyfriend, girlfriend, a parent, and even loss of a cat or a dog. Now, some people may think that's ridiculous, but I know, and you know, who are listening or watching, that many people are as bonded to their dogs and their cats, in some cases more bonded to their pets than to people. Uh, I've never been a dog lover, but I could easily see how a person could have a huge, powerful attachment to dogs because they are so relatable. Personally, I have a cat named Bruce. He's sleeping over there in the living room. Yep, cats like to sleep, don't they? And I says, I lost my dog devastated. Well, and you are not the only person who has had that experience. I have a man in my men's group who's about to lose his dog, and he's completely bereft, and it hasn't even happened yet. So, you know, time heals all wounds, time heals grief. In the meantime, find a therapist or a grief counselor to talk about your grief with. I believe a huge amount in support groups. There are grief groups in Portland, Oregon. They're sometimes time limited, 12 weeks, but you still get to be with other people grieving for 12 weeks. So wherever you are, type in grief groups and then type in your local hospital and see if they offer any. Highly recommend that if you've lost your dog and you're devastated. But I remember when my cats was run over, I thought I'd never get over it. And then I got, Leanne says, I don't get attached to my dogs. The loss of a child's my worst fear. Yeah, well, it is for most people. But you know, I had my cat run over. I thought I'd never get out of it. And then I got a new cat, and now I bonded to him, Bruce. My father used to say that about when women would leave me. He'd say, Doug, one nail drives out another. That was very terse. Of course, my father had very few words. He was extremely, he didn't say a whole lot, but when he said stuff, it was very wise. ABC says, how would you advise a person who's depressed due to philosophical nihilism? Yeah, that's got to be tough. You think the world has no meaning and it's random, it's going to hard to feel good. Amen, Leanne. Nature, music, and drawing a mind. Those are wonderful things to help yourselves. Yeah, philosophical nihilism. Kurt Vonnegut tells a story in the book Cat's Cradle of someone who basically was a nihilist and was house sitting and hung his cat while that was happening. Kurt Vonnegut said that ended nihilism for me as a philosophy. So I don't really know how to answer that. Do you believe in the power of love? Do you have anybody you care about? Are you bonded to a girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, dog, pet? Love will definitely overcome nihilism every day because that is what it's all about. Scott Peck, who wrote the book The Road Less Traveled, said we're here on this earth in order to love one another and to grow in love and wisdom and to come closer to God, which is love. So Lee says, would you date some guy living with his parents who's 41, but it's temporary? I'd like to start dating again. It would make me even happier. Hey, I was 32 and living with my parents, and I met a woman, and she said, hey, Doug's for me. We had a great relationship. So, yeah, I have people in my groups, my support groups, who are living with their parents, and they're in their 40s. So it's not uncommon for that to happen anymore. So I would not write the guy off just because he's 41 living with his mom and dad. He might have many redemptive qualities that you would like, and that would be helpful. Well, we're at the 59:16 mark. I'm sorry we got off to a slow start. I have no idea why YouTube delayed announcing that I was on live till 11:15. So I'll go a few more minutes. I do want to see if I can fix my computer. So when I do this again, I can be on a different screen. But as always, it's been great talking with you. Keep the questions coming in. You can write your questions in the comments section of this and other videos, or I haven't shown this yet. Email me, douglasblog@gmail.com, and you will definitely get a response from me. I respond to every email and every comment. Love you, Doug, says Leanne. Well, love you too. If you're ever in Portland, come by. Like to meet you. Lee McQueen says, I'm doing to rebuild my life, studying and saving. Thanks, Doug. We haven't heard from Triple S Trucking. Have you ever thought of buying a hammer and smashing your fucking thumbs? No, I don't think I'd like. Don't think I'd like that. That wouldn't be very helpful, would it? Um, well, we're at the 1 hour mark, and I think we'll call it a morning. You're calling it a day, and thanks for tuning in. And yeah, I will block that guy. I can't block that guy using my iPad. That's why I want to get on the computer, because you can block people doing that. You can't really block these people. Anyway, thank you. And when the video is posted, those negative comments will not be there. Have a great day, says Lee. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the good work. Obviously has issues, obviously. Well, a lot of people are angry, and what can I tell you? All right. As we say in my video, all the best in double ironment. I wish you the best in your mental health recovery. Thanks again.